Yeah, it's like, okay, um, the dark web, right?
Hmm.
Uh, the sky is blue, water is wet, chocolate is yummy, your information is on the dark web. And that's it. Like it's not that big a deal. Like
Right.
it is what it is. So
Mhm.
okay, so what do you do about that? Well, easy enough. The idea is okay, your information's on the dark web. I've had criminal hackers email me my social security number. Hey, security guy, here's your social, haha. Basically flexing their muscles, showing me how cool they are. I could care less. Why? Because you do things to make the data that the bad guy has useless to the thief. So, how do you make a social security number relatively useless to the thief? Well, you get a credit freeze.
Hello, and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Show. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the Queen of Online Safety. Hello, and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Show. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the Queen of Online Safety, and I've got a wonderful guest for you today. You're absolutely going to love him. Robert Siciliano, or Siciliano, depending on where you're from, is a security expert and a private investigator, and he has spent over 30 years protecting people from both physical and virtual threats. He is the CEO of Safer.me and the architect of the CSI Protection Certification. He is a best-selling author of 5 books and, on last count, has completed 12 Boston marathons. Is that right, Robert? There we go. Uh,
13.
13, there you go. He also serves as a flotilla staff officer with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Coast Guard Auxiliary. And he's a familiar face. I like to think of him as the Al Pacino of cybersecurity, but you've seen him if you watch CNN, Fox News, Today Show, or read his great advice in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And now on our Smarter Online Safety Show. Robert, so great to have you.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. Much appreciated.
That is so great. Now, one of the things when you and I talk, I always enjoy our conversations, and I love your perspective. You've had an interesting career, to say the least, and I think our viewers would love to know more about how you got into this. Can you take us back?
So my career path is not like everybody else's. I'm often asked, are you, former law enforcement, FBI, CIA, Secret Service? Where'd you serve? None of that. I am literally from the streets of Boston.
Mhm.
And the streets of Boston have, something to offer, right? And my perspective begins when I was as little as 12, as young as 12. I was in downtown Boston. My father let my little brother and I head into town. He gave us money to get on the train, and we get off the train, and there's 5 kids waiting for me and my brother, and they beat us up and they took our money.
Oh gosh.
Never had even, thought that that was even a thing. And so I go home kind of beaten and bloodied. My father's like, okay, so those boys, we call them predators, they were the lions or the wolves. And you and your brother were like the bunny rabbits or the gazelles. And I was like, all
Mhm.
right, didn't quite understand what he meant, but it made sense. And then about a year later, still a kid, 13, I go to summer camp, like many kids did. And I met a girl, and she was, sweet on me. I was sweet on her, and we liked each other, and we'd hold hands. And one day we got off the bus and after camp, and we sit in her front stairs, and she's looking at me and kind of solemn. And she says, I think you should know that my mother's boyfriend raped me.
Mm.
Now I'm looking at her and she's all upset and I, shortly afterwards I didn't know what to say and I go home and I say to my dad, "What's rape?" Because I had no idea what she was talking about. I just knew it was bad based on how she presented it to me. And so from that point on, personal protection, personal security, predators, right? Sociopaths became a thing in my life. Like it was a focus for me at an early age. And I didn't see the world like most of the kids around me did, based on my experiences, based on what I knew.
Mm.
And so from that point on, like that became a focus and motivation. And I started teaching all those around me about personal protection as I learned it myself, taking various forms and teaching various forms of self defense. By the age of 25, this is what I was doing. Like I had a full-time job in the trades. But at the same time, like I knew that wasn't my purpose. And so I was spending a lot of time on this business of personal protection. And I even, was speaking to the real estate industry because realtors are murdered. And around that same time frame, I had a small business selling personal protection products. And I had an IBM PS1 consultant, which was a make and model of a computer with a Windows 3.0 OS and 150 megabyte hard drive with a dial up connection via AOL. And I had the ability to accept credit cards via that computer as a point of sale. And I got hacked in 95. And I
Mm.
didn't know what hacking was. I didn't know much more than than about the computer, than AOL and everything else. Like I lost thousands of dollars when it all came down to it. And I was astounded, upset, amazed, and at the same time, like impressed. I wanted to know how they did what they did. Like my business was personal security. My business was preventing violence and theft in the physical world. And
Hmm.
now I was essentially robbed virtually.
Right.
And for somebody like me who studies predatory behavior, like it was awful, but awesome all at the same time. I just like how'd they do that? And so I
Hmm.
figured if they can do that to me, they can do that to anybody. And so I started to research it and I started to understand that it was becoming a thing. It wasn't quite a thing yet, you know?
Hmm.
And so as I spent more time, energy, and effort on this topic, I started to see identity theft started to become a problem. As
Hmm.
more municipalities went online, more government agencies, social security numbers started to become readily available. And someone
Right.
figured out that they could use that to become, me and you. So identity theft became my first focus in addition to, um, being robbed online. But
Right.
again, data
Or mugged
breach.
in person and things like that. You're adding this whole, now you're doing physical world safety and cyber world safety, online safety.
Yeah. Similarly to how, where you come from with all this stuff, like
Right.
we
We
we've
have so much in
experienced
common. Yeah.
yeah, we've experienced a lot of the same stuff.
Hmm.
And by the early 2000s, I what I was doing began to mean something and matter. After 9/11 hit, I said to my wife, like, I think I should give this thing a full time. I think I should go full time with this. And I did. And right off the bat, like I got a call from CNN and I just went full time and what I had to say then and now matters and matters. And the interesting thing is like not much has changed. It's just
Hmm.
gotten worse. And the consumer, the everyday person, I don't know that like, they're any more sophisticated today than they were 25 years ago in regards to managing risk because the way we are as humans, we just don't quite grasp security the way that I wish we did.
Can you say more about that? That's such a great point, and I agree with you. How do you wish people could grasp it?
You know, the problem that most of us face is like we engage in what I call this human blind spot, right? And the
Hmm.
human blind spot is all about trust. It's about the fact that I trust you,
Right.
like I want to and I need to trust you because I consider you to be a good person. I don't look at you as somebody who means to do me harm. And
Hmm.
so when I navigate the day, the majority of the people that I come in contact with are worthy of my trust. And unless like they give off this weird vibe, I pretty much give people the benefit of the doubt. Even when they like might like be a little odd, like pretty much throughout the day when I meet people and I receive phone calls and emails and text messages, like as a human, we want to need to, trust. It's like our
We're kind of
default.
wired to, we have to trust somebody for our survival because we can't, so we have some human wiring in here too, as well, working for us and against us.
We are what's called an interdependent species. That
Mm.
means we depend on each other for our survival. We would just cease to exist if we didn't trust so we could procreate,
Right.
right? And so what I call this is the human blind spot, which
Hmm.
basically is the psychological and biological instinct to trust what is familiar to us, right? And
Hmm.
really what it boils down to when it comes to security is that cognitive gap where biological trust overrides digital suspicion, which leaves the door wide open for all kinds of frauds and deceptions.
That is that makes such sense. And I know that our listeners, first of all, they're smart and want to be smarter and they want to be safer online. And I can just I can see some of the comments coming in already because I know some of our listeners so well that that's really going to resonate because it's not about having blanket trust. And on the flip side, and I'm sure you run into this a lot of times too, one of the arguments for not doing more to protect yourself is people say, well, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live paranoid. I love how you talk about the difference between being paranoid and being prepared or cautious. And I'd love, could you talk about that for anybody feeling that they're battling that? They don't want to not trust people, but they also don't want to put themselves in harm's way. What do you have to say
Yeah.
to them?
So, paranoia in regards to security and how it relates is an effect of denial. So, the two of them kind of interact together. And what that basically means is like, so I get in front of a live audience, 100, 200, 500 people. I ask them all kinds of questions. And one of the questions I ask is like, how many of you have, well, how many of you have a home security? Actually, let me back up a little bit. I tell them I'm a guy that has, and this is true, 20 plus security cameras. I have 20 plus security cameras.
Hmm.
While it may be considered like a little excessive, sure, but like let's just say like we don't know each other, you don't know what I do for a living, like we don't, you don't know like what my, overall outlook of the world is, right? When I ask this question, when I tell these people this, like I say like, so what does that really mean? Like what might you think I am? And the overwhelming answer is paranoid, you know,
Yes.
which is kind of funny actually, because I got like 100 people going paranoid at the same time, and they all look at each other and kind of giggle because
You
it
got a
kind of like feels
chorus.
yeah, exactly. And it kind of feels uncomfortable calling somebody paranoid, like, because
Yeah.
everybody's just so nice, right? And so the reality of it is we look at security as a form of paranoia, as in like that person who engages in security practices, they must worry all the time. They must think that people are out to get them. They must be looking over their shoulder. And like paranoia is, in fact, a mental health dis-ease. And
Correct.
if you are looking at security as that, why would you ever want security in your life? You know what I mean? Nobody wants that, right? And
Hmm.
so when I ask my audiences questions, I say like, okay, so how many of you have a home security system? If I get 15% of the room to raise their hand out of 100, that's a lot. 15% is a lot, right? And then I ask, okay, so why don't you have a home security system? And I always get these answers that are very telling. Like, for example, people say, well, I don't have a home security system because we have insurance, that protects our stuff. It's like, all right, does it protect you? Like it's like they haven't thought that through. Or we have a home security system. We don't have a home security system because my husband says if they're going to break in, they're going to break in, which is like, okay, like that's a pretty fatalist attitude. Like you're not going to do anything to prevent them to get into 3 a.m., you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then the most common answer, which really truly kind of explains it all, is people say, well, we don't have a home security system because we don't want to live like that.
Yep.
We,
I
we
hear
don't
that all
want to
the
live in
time.
fear. We don't
Hmm.
want to have to worry. We just want to be free, as if having a home security system is like a constant reminder that, there's bad people doing bad things out there and you don't want to have to think about that. So I'd just rather function in denial and say it can't happen to me, not have to think about it, not have to worry, which is not what security is. Security is not you worrying. You don't put a seatbelt on because you worry. You put it
Right.
on because it gives you control.
Hmm.
But that's a lot of people. A lot of people, like I would say a good 8 out of 10 at least, look at security as this thing that's worry and fear. And as a result, because we don't want to worry, we don't want to live in fear, we function in denial and say, it can't happen to me. That is categorically most people. And as a result, most people don't engage in basic one-on-one security practices.
Right. But you're here to be able to tell everybody that you can take steps to protect yourself without going over the top, without being paranoid, without looking over your shoulder all the time, and but get yourself from where you are to safer than you are today.
Yeah, as do you. Like all this stuff is so absolutely simple, you know?
Mhm.
It's like if you talk password management, and I ask my audiences, like, how, and this is like every audience, how many of you are using a different passcode across multiple accounts? If I get like 15% of the room to raise their hand, that's a lot, which means
Mhm.
85% are using the same passcode across multiple accounts. And then I ask, how many of you are using two factor authentication? If I get 20%, it's usually a little bit more because it's required in most cases. I get, 20% of the room, if that, right? Which means 80 to 90% of all persons in the general public are using the same passcode across multiple accounts and not using two factor authentication.
Well,
And then,
that's why
like I was,
hackers love us because we do stupid things like this and we leave ourselves vulnerable. And when I say stupid, I don't mean people are stupid, but I mean we have smart people making unsmart decisions about protecting themselves. I mean, if you really felt this way, like, as the people were saying, then you wouldn't lock your doors or your car ever, and you just leave everything open all the time, and you'd walk down a dark alley at night saying, I just want to be free to be me. And but yet the same people who don't want to take certain security measures are not engaging in a lot of those activities.
a lot of the basic best practices are just ignored because we trust by default.
Hmm.
We don't want to think it can happen to me. We function in denial, which ends up that we do nothing.
Right.
And the good news is all of this stuff is pretty dang easy, you know? Managing passwords with a password manager is pretty easy. And then I get like the question every single time, 50 hands go up. Well, what if the password manager gets hacked?
Yes,
You
I
know,
get that every time too. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, it's as if like we want to discredit the technology that we enjoy or
Hmm.
that's available to us because we don't want to engage in security practices in the first
Right.
place.
However, you and I have the gift of knowledge because we know how they work. So for our listeners, can you explain why you don't have to worry about so if one password or Bitwarden got hacked, what would that mean? Let's
So
talk about that.
these companies are security companies, and
Yes.
unlike not unlike banks that have military grade encryption, right?
Mhm.
Bank level military grade encryption. So do the password manager companies.
Right.
It is to their benefit, of course, that our data on their servers is properly protected. And
Right.
so they have some of the best security on the planet,
Mhm.
because they need to, because they're handling a lot of sensitive information and there's a tremendous amount of liability there. Okay.
Right.
Have there been hacks at banks? Yeah. Have there been hacks in password manager companies? Yeah. There have been hacks. Look at, we're companies are being targeted all day, every day.
Hmm.
And it's just a matter of time until the bad guys get through. But that doesn't mean that they
Hmm.
get through to all of the money or the sensitive
Right.
data, because there's all
Yeah.
kinds of encryption.
And
They
and that's a good point because I think one thing people have to know, if one password got hacked, it's not like you're getting into a vault full of Excel files that have Robert's bank and his login name, his username and his password. It's so encrypted that even once you got in, think of it like the nuclear submarine codes. You have to have three keys to open. You can't activate it without it. That's the level of security. And people who don't work in security don't realize those complexities that are in there. But even if the only time there was a hack that was detrimental was they hacked. If LastPass has been known, and they've had to do mea culpas for passing. So that's why a lot of us don't recommend LastPass. But even then, most of the hacks are about the credit cards that you're using to pay for it with, and that was the one and only time that happened. So
Yeah, and really, like at this point, like LastPass is unlikely to let that thing happen again,
right, yeah, they've learned their lesson, and so.
Sure. And
But
it's
the others are
important.
not designed the way they are. So you and I both recommend that everybody get a password manager.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I've had a mobile phone for 30 years. And
Hmm.
this used to be in a bag, bag phone.
Hmm.
And honestly, like don't know my mother's phone number. I don't know my father's phone number.
Right.
Like my mobile has all my phone numbers in it that I don't need to remember, similar to how my password manager remembers all my passwords. I know maybe three or four passwords for Google,
Right.
Apple, and for my device and for my phone and maybe one or
Mhm.
two others, and that's about it. Like I don't need to remember that stuff. The
Right.
password manager does the same job as the, contact manager does in your phone.
Right. And also the other thing too is that until you're what 90 to 95% of all cybersecurity professionals use a password manager. So if 95% of us say that this is better than even us trying to do something different on our own, until you're better than all those 95% of cybersecurity professionals, it's probably good deal to follow that advice. Now,
Yeah, yeah. It
one of
it
the
doesn't
things
take
that
much.
happened, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It doesn't take much to do a quick Google search. There's like
Mhm.
15 billion exposed passwords on the dark
Right.
web. Like our passwords, 15
Yes.
billion.
Right.
So just doing a quick search, y'all can download all of those hacked and stolen passwords. And bad guys don't necessarily hack into systems as much
Right.
as you might think. They just log in to systems because they have the credentials to do so.
Which we gave them or which they got because they hacked in. Let's talk about that for a second because that's the other big thing that people have is like and unfortunately I'm a former marketer and I will say this is something I hate about marketers that they are marketing to people to say, with all these companies that you're saying, hey, pay us X dollars and we'll get you off the dark web. Or a lot of people are having anxiety over the fact that they get an email that says your information's been found on the dark web. Let's talk about that because you have the dark web reality check. Let's give everybody a dark web reality check right now.
Yeah, it's like, okay, um, the dark web, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the sky is blue, water is wet, chocolate is yummy, your information is on the dark web. And that's it. Like it's not that big a deal. Like
Right.
it is what it is. So
Mhm.
okay, so what do you do about that? Well, easy enough. The idea is okay, your information's on the dark web. I have had criminal hackers email me my social security number.
Mhm.
Hey, security guy, here's your social, haha. Basically flexing their muscle, show me how cool they are. I could care
Mhm.
less. Why?
Mhm.
Because you do things to make the data that the bad guy has useless to the thief. So, how do you make a social security number relatively useless to the thief? Well, you get a credit freeze. A credit
Mhm.
freeze locks down your credit report so that even if the bad guy does apply for a loan, a credit card, and so forth, they can't open any new accounts under your name because you have a credit freeze. So a credit freeze is like the best layer of protection that you can adopt to prevent new account fraud. If you want
That
to
is so
go
true.
for, yeah, if you want to go for identity theft protection, sure, go for that. That's another layer of protection, right?
Let's talk about that too, because there's a lot of choices there. What's your advice for identity theft protection? Because there's a lot of people selling a lot of things out there, and if you Google it and you get a sponsored ad trying to sell you something, they're not all created equal. One company, how they're going to protect you, and another company are different. What's your advice there?
So at this point, they're all pretty much doing similar or same things.
Hmm.
Like I said, as far as like protecting and preventing identity theft, new account fraud, a credit freeze for free is really the best thing that you can do because
Hmm.
that just locks down your credit report, that's where all the action is happening, right?
Right.
Beyond that, if you wanted to make the investment in identity theft protection, the best case scenario is you have essentially a team behind you that works with you or for you or in the capacity of a power of attorney should something go wrong, in many cases beyond what their actual product can actually protect you from,
Hmm.
and their experts or attorneys for that matter will work with you in your behalf or in your behalf to mitigate whatever fraud occurred. That being said, their terms of service and terms and conditions kind of spell it all out that ultimately they don't have to give you anything beyond what their product will protect you from. But usually, if they want to keep you on, they will do something. So, all the three credit bureaus have pretty much bought up all of the identity theft protection services that are out there and exist. Okay,
Right.
there are very few like lone wolves at this point. Most of them either folded or they've been purchased and absorbed. Other than that, like LifeLock does know what they're doing. I mean, they do. They do. They know what they're doing. They are the leader, so to speak. And if you were to purchase a singular product, really, if you went with the lowest tier option that they have, that's probably enough. And then on
Hmm.
top of that, have the credit freeze.
And do you think people should have, like, who do you think should have the cyber insurance or cyber coverage for up to $500,000 or $1 million? should they, be hacked? Because those are some of the options and offerings that come available on some of these. What's your take on that and your advice?
Yeah, usually those services come with like $1 million, a $500,000 insurance where they will
Hmm.
like cover you up to a particular dollar amount. I
Hmm.
don't know anybody that's ever actually taken advantage of any of that stuff, although they'll invest in this much money or that amount of money to mitigate your fraud and so forth. I don't know anybody that's ever actually cashed that in either. So I don't
Hmm.
know that that is even of any value at all. But why not? Like our home insurance also has certain forms of coverage in that regard. So check into that because that may already be something you're paying for.
Right.
Simple
Oh, that's a
stuff.
good point too, because a lot of home insurance and umbrella insurance policies will have a little rider that's like $57 a year added, and it gives you all this coverage should you get hacked. So not having to pay separately, you could just add it as a optional.
Yeah. I
That's
think the
great.
key is having a company, watching your back should something go wrong for tax related identity theft, medical related identity theft, even new account fraud, various forms of fraud that, you need somebody to hold your hand and walk you through how to mitigate and fix whatever you have going on for 10, $15 a month is not a bad investment.
Right.
I have, for free through AAA Plus something with Experian that monitors my credit. For
Right.
another few bucks a month, I can get that same service to also provide me mitigation if I wanted or needed it. I think I'm up to speed on all that stuff. Is it a
Right.
good investment? I would say yes, but don't
Well, and
spend too
especially
much
for
money.
people that don't have your skills and knowledge and are like, oh, I need help, that they would like some hand holding through it. That's a great option for a very minimal output of money.
There are people that contact me all the time that have all kinds of issues, and I say you need to sign up for identity theft protection so somebody can watch your back. Because if
Mhm.
you obviously cannot do this all on your own,
Right.
and therefore you want somebody like there for you. So I
Mhm.
recommend that people get full service identity theft protection all the time, mainly if they're not just savvy to the degree that you need to be to heck use a password manager.
No, that makes
There's
total
nothing
sense.
wrong with that.
Yeah.
You just, sometimes people just need a little more help with that stuff.
Well, that's great. And while we're on the topic of money, let's just keep going. How do you recommend people protect their credit cards?
So I don't know that you can protect your credit cards. I don't know that like proactively there's anything you could do to actually like prevent it.
Hmm.
If there is, I don't know. I know that like you can lock your cards in certain cases, like just shut the card down. Like if you have your card on an app, you can like flip a toggle and make it so that like that card can't be charged without you.
Yeah.
So that's one way to, I guess, proactively manage cards. Not all cards have that feature, but I would
Hmm.
dig into all of your cards in their apps to see what your options are to turn the card off. So,
Right.
like if you're not using it, but when you do use it, you go to the app, you turn it on, and therefore it's functional. I would check into that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the only other option is really reactively. You get push alerts or push notifications, which
Right.
means that every single time there's a charge, you get a quick text message, a pop up, or an email that says, "Hey, Robert, your card was just used at this restaurant, at this gas station, at this supermarket, online, and so forth." And those push notifications for me, they come in quite frequently.
Right.
In my personal and professional life, we spend like easy 10 grand a month on all the various bills in Costco and gas
Auto
and
payments too
uh,
are good.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
electronic fund transfers that actually pay the
Hmm.
credit card through the bank.
Hmm.
But all of that, I'm getting notifications all the time, which
Hmm.
means I'm actually the one in the family that checks that stuff and in the business. And so I'm reaching out to employees, I'm reaching out to family. Hey, did you just?
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with, and
Hmm.
usually like they're fine
Yeah.
with with responding, and just so that I know that those charges in real time were by either my loved ones or my employees.
That's so great. And an added benefit is once you really see what you're spending and how much you're spending, or how much your family is spending, or how much your business is spending, you also get that awareness helps you be more responsible in the actual purchases you're making. There's all these side benefits that the studies have found where you're actually reducing your spending because you're going, oh, I'm kind of going overboard on the, or I spend this much on coffee every month. Like there's things like that that catch people and you actually end up having, financial gains out of it too, which is
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Gives you insight to the pulse of your financial life.
Right. Now, there's another thing you talk about that I want to get in. What is the silent wealth killer?
Well, there's a number of silent wealth killers, and one of them is look at there is right now there is a epidemic happening right now, and it's often with our parents, baby boomers, silent generation, and even people our age
Mhm.
that we get those wrong number text messages, okay, and we think like, okay, hey Robert, are we supposed to meet for lunch tomorrow? And you're like, I'm sorry, who's this? And if you don't already know that that's a scam, if you don't already know and you respond, you're going down the rabbit hole with a scammer. Okay, so whether
Because
it's a,
they're saying, "Oh, I've got a live one here," right?
exactly.
Hmm.
If you don't know that that's a scam right off the bat, and or you get an email from someone who you're not quite sure and you respond, they already know that like they've kind of already like got the hook in you already. Okay,
Hmm.
so what's happening here is they're looking to engage just in dialogue, right? That dialogue is like, hey, I am, I'm Gloria, Robert. Where are you in the world? And Robert responds with, oh, I'm in, Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, I'm in Coral Gables, Florida. What do you do for a living, Robert? And the dialogue begins. And what most people don't realize is like this dialogue, this back and forth, it's about that we are social creatures. It's about building rapport, and it's about that Robert eventually, if Gloria does her job effectively, trusts Gloria. And what Gloria eventually is going to do is she's going to get Robert to invest in whatever she has going on,
Right.
gold, crypto, you name it. And
Hmm.
what kills wealth is once Robert and Gloria establish a rapport and a relationship. And Robert, like, um, now is thinking about Gloria all the time, right? Because Gloria is texting Robert or emailing Robert or even getting on WhatsApp video with Robert, like real time, right?
Even though Gloria is probably Dimitri, but yes, keep going.
Well, often Gloria
Can
is
be.
Gloria,
No,
actually.
that's true. 1/3 of all hackers are female. We get that.
Well, I've met some of
Yeah.
these perpetrators. Like I've
Yes.
gotten on WhatsApp video with them, and I
Hmm.
mean it is Gloria,
Yeah.
but she's adopting AI face overlay,
Yeah.
and she's speaking with a Southeast Asian heavy accent, you know, but she looks like a Russian model.
Right. And by
So
the way, AI is changing the sound now. It could make her sound like she's from Florida.
100%,
Mhm.
it can clone her voice like she's me or
While
you.
she's talking with a Russian accent, it's going to sound like she's from South
It's
Florida.
perfect. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so what's happening is like after a period of time, like Gloria says, "Hey, Robert, like I know you work really hard all day long. What do you think about like crypto? Because I've been investing in crypto and I'm making like, between 20 and 80% in my money." And then she sends me screenshots. Like this is literally like what I do. She sends me screenshots of her, of her profits. And then she, maybe like drops it and brings it up a week later. As you continue to engage and have all this rapport, it's like, good night, Robert. I hope you sleep well, tonight. And then next morning I wake up, good morning, Robert. How did you sleep last night? Like, and this goes on every single day, 6 to 8 times a day. And what happens is like you invest $1,000
Mhm.
and you see pretty quickly that that thousand turns into 1,500.
It's like, wow, this is awesome. I
Yeah.
love this. Yeah.
And this process is that like Gloria literally sends me, Robert, screenshots of how to like connect your bank account and your credit cards to Coinbase, to
Mhm.
crypto.com's app and so forth. Like she walks you through the entire process. Like she'll send screenshots and like squiggle and circle and point to what you have to do to connect everything. Like really holding your hand to make it happen. And then once you make your first investment, that like, almost doubles in the first week. And she says, if you want, you could take that money out right now,
Mhm.
just like a Ponzi scheme,
Yep.
exactly like a Ponzi scheme, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Hmm.
And they do that because they know that even if you do take the money out in the first week, you're going to want to probably put it back in a week later,
Right.
and ultimately, like,
It's the same thing that drives gambling as an
yeah,
addiction. Yeah.
yeah. And the fact that there's somebody out there that's like, that is thinking of you, That like if your
Daily,
loneliness,
better than any family member you have or friend or whatever, that they're checking in on you more. This is, you've got this caring person ostensibly.
when your loneliness dissipates, and
Mm,
25% of all humans, when they get out of bed every day, their disposition throughout the day is lonely. 25% of all humans experience loneliness on a regular basis. And if
mhm.
you're one of those lonely people that's reacting and responding to those texts 8 to 10 times a day, it's just a matter of time till that loneliness dissipates. And Gloria basically becomes the puppeteer, and you are the unfortunate puppet. And once you start making those investments, before you know it, you're withdrawing money out of your Roth IRA, you're mortgaging your home, you're pulling all your investments out because Gloria's got it going on and Gloria has your best interests. And I have met people face to face, one
Yeah,
on one, like
I have
me and
to.
you, like right
Yeah.
here, that like have lost 6 and 7 figures. People that like for their entire lives worked, saved, compounded interest, invested, have had financial advisors, but like something was going on in their life where they thought they knew better. Gloria came in at the right time and they just invested with Gloria and they lost everything
Right. And you can't get it back. It's offshore. The FBI's, yeah, nope, there's no knight in shining armor that can come in at that point and get your money back.
in very, very rare situations do you get anything back.
Right.
But most of the
I,
time,
s-
you're getting
I was
nothing
speaking to a
back.
widow just last week, she and her husband was even ex-law enforcement. And they followed one of these schemes. It wasn't a Gloria, but it was one of the Shark Tank sharks AI video, and
Mm,
they invested. And the same thing. It's like, wow, they got 150% return. And
yeah,
you notice even that it's identical because 25% is good, but not quite enough. Double is suspicious. One point, I mean, they've got the psychology nailed. It's 150% return.
yeah,
And then, oh, well, you can take it out and do that. They're offering you $500 and nobody takes them up on it. And ultimately now this woman is widowed and her husband's entire retirement is gone. And she's a widow trying to figure out what to live on.
yeah,
And for so many people, I'm also seeing it, the 45 to 65-year olds whose parents have just gone through this while they're busy working. Now all of a sudden they can't afford their assisted living facility or anything. And now the whole family's scrambling. What are they going to do? Take their kids' college fund to get the assisted living help that their parent needs. And when you say this is an epidemic, I'm just like, amen. I'm doubling down. It's so important that people know this because this is happening every minute of every hour of every day, and it's decimating families and
I
individuals.
think we're approaching $100 billion just like in the past 4 to 5 years of losses
Wow.
from our parents and people that like we know and love. I've never seen more high dollar fraud losses in such a concentrated period of time than in the past 1 to 2 years, and it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
AI is making it so much more effective, and the fact that most people trust by default,
Right.
25% of us are lonely. We function in denial that these bad things can happen to us. And you've got an entire generation, baby boomers, let's say, that are moneyed. They have that they're worth about 124 trillion dollars. The baby boomers, and they're
Mhm.
transferring that wealth as we speak to like Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, and so forth. But they're also, you know, getting scammed, giving it away. That money is the target. So
Mhm.
the most moneyed, the least technically savvy, the most
Mhm.
trusting on the planet, and frankly, like cognitively declining. Like my dad's 78. He repeats himself here and there. It's a normal thing, right?
Right.
But like that's the target. And so we, as people who have a clue, those listening to this podcast that like have the wherewithal to like, actually invest your time in something like this type of information, you have a responsibility not just to yourself and your family, but to your parents and those around you to like spread the word because
Right.
this is getting worse. It's not going to get any better. There's all kinds of things you can do. There's no need to throw your hands up in the air and say, my 15-year-old knows more about security than I do or technology than I do. The time
Mhm.
is now to
Right.
get control over this. And that's a matter of like sharing this podcast and talking to the people in your life and sitting them down and having a say over like if and when they move money.
Right.
Like now is the time to take control.
That's the best call to action you could possibly have for this. And to your point, younger generate 15-year-olds and stuff, they know more about technology, but they do less around security, right? I talk on college campuses and things like that all the time, and I know you talk to everybody as well, but they're the most targeted. The seniors that we're talking about lose the most, but actually the people who are hit the most are people in their 20s and 30s. They just don't lose as much as the people with retirement accounts. So
Yeah, yeah,
so everybody's got to be careful. And I love that. It really is a protect yourself and protect those around you, because I loved how you put it. It's an epidemic. It really is.
yeah. So going forward, I have what's called the Strategic Human Firewall. It's a
Yes.
program that I deliver. It's about blocking deception. It's a
Mhm.
proactive governance, a mindset that turns employees from passive targets to an active detection layer. It's a shift from I trust what I see to I verify everything. It's designed for organizations that are providing compliance-based phishing simulation training, but they're recognizing that that's not necessarily solving the problem of security awareness with their employees. Like
Right.
people are still clicking the links, they're still downloading the files, like they're still not really connecting to the information the way that maybe the CISO wants to. And the idea essentially is to bridge that gap. It's to go from essentially like, basic security awareness to
Mhm.
what I call security appreciation. Essentially, it's that shift from security awareness, which is like knowing, right, to appreciation, which is caring.
Yeah.
It's when employees appreciate how security protects their own lives first, which is where all security should begin, right? It should
Right.
begin with all security being personal, which is where I come from, personal
Yes.
protection, right?
Yes.
Which is the core belief that we protect what we love, okay? So by
Mhm.
teaching someone to secure, say, their child's identity, their
Mhm.
child's digital footprint, you create more successful, secure employees at work.
That is so true. That is such great advice. So for people who want to learn more about this and also your books and stuff, what's the best way to find you?
Well, if you can spell Siciliano, Google me, right? Not too hard to find. Otherwise, protectnowllc.com. Again, protectnowllc.com is my website.
That's awesome. Oh, Robert, you're always informative and you make this accessible and entertaining. And that's why I love to call you the Al Pacino of cybersecurity. And thank you so much. You've given everybody such great information and advice, and in such a compelling way. Thank you
Well,
so much for being on our show. And I'm so glad you were here. So, everybody, really take to heart what Robert is advising you. It is the best of advice that you can
you're
get.
doing great work here. People, please share this podcast with everybody in your life. It is just so important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, that's another episode. And until next time, stay safe out there.